Oh, what you playing there, kid?
I'm just playing some Switch.
Oh, hey, if you like Mario, then you'll love this. It's a retro emulation handheld and it comes with thousands and thousands of games. Give it a try.
Where's the games?
Oh, well, you're in the settings there. Go back. You gotta get to the games list.
This game sucks.
Oh, yeah, that's some weird Atari game. Don't play Atari.
This game sucks too.
I don't even know what that game is. Try to find a Mario game.
The controls are all weird.
Wait, are you in the emulator settings? How'd you get there?
My save game won't load.
Wait, did you save over your game? If only there was a way I could have made this retro emulation handheld experience better for this kid. Well, you can, and I'm gonna tell you how. Who said that? Hello, I'm TechDweeb, welcome. Thanks for clicking on the video. Some people like to have kids. Why? Well, I don't know. It seems like a lot of unnecessary work if you ask me. I like hanging out with kids, they're good people, but I'm not gonna give up my free time to make and raise a kid of my own. I got important stuff to do, come on now. But if you've ever tried to get a kid into retro gaming, you've probably learned that it's not easy. Kids today, man, with their Minecraft and their Fortnites, these retro games are special things and it's very rewarding to give the gift of retro gaming to people who don't know about this emulation stuff, but it takes a lot of extra work to get the kids to see the fun in playing old games. And if you don't approach it the right way, it's just not gonna work. Trust me, I know. What makes me such an expert? Well, apart from the fact that I'm actually a 9-year-old boy trapped in a 41-year-old man's body, I have lots of experience with this exact topic. I've given retro handhelds to various kids I know probably a dozen times now, and I've learned some hard lessons on the way. You can't just give a kid a retro emulation device and say, here you go, it has 60,000 games on it, have fun, and expect them to know what the heck they're doing or what the heck they should play, or how the heck to fix the settings that they broke, or why the heck they should even bother playing with this thing instead of Fortnite or Minecraft. And if you have a special kiddo in your life that you'd like to take on the magical journey through the eons and experience the best games from the last 40 years, then stick around. But before we get into the details, I just want to mention that the handheld that I'm going to be using for demonstration today is this, the Powkiddy RGB20S. I've already reviewed this handheld and I'll link to that video below if you want the details. I'll go over other handheld options, you don't need this handheld, but I wanted to use this today because I think this product is an amazing handheld for a kid. And once I explain the steps, you'll understand why. Apparently this handheld is super hot right now. It's blowing up on TikTok or whatever. This is the new grape flavor. Anyways, if you want this exact handheld, then you can check it out at LitNXT using the link in the description below. Oh, and LitNXT also sent me this RG Nano, but I already had an RG Nano. So they said I should just give it away. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'll include a link in the description below. And check that out if you would like a shot at winning this little bad boy. We'll start with picking a handheld. This one seems easy at first, but there's quite a few factors to consider. The first thing you need to consider is the price. I'm of the opinion that you don't need to buy a higher end premium handheld for a kid, because in my experience, they don't really care about how well it runs stuff or how high quality the screen is or how good the analog sticks are or whatever. But at the same time, you probably don't want to buy the cheapest of the cheap because something very low end is going to be annoying in some ways. It's not going to be a great experience. And if it doesn't have enough power to run a good operating system, then you won't have the ability to customize the experience for them, as we'll do in a bit. And then you need to decide where this handheld is going to be going. Is this something that you want the kid to carry around with them everywhere? To bring on the bus and play with in the schoolyard or the candy store? Or where do kids go? Do kids even go anywhere these days? But you don't want to give a kid a big honkin' Powkiddy X55 if they need to carry it in their pocket at camp. And likewise, you probably don't need to give them a tiny little RG Nano sized handheld if they're literally not going to leave their bedroom with it. And finally, you need to consider what operating system is on the device. Older, cheap handhelds like the Powkiddy V90 usually use Open Dingux, and that's a fine OS, but it's definitely not very user-friendly for a kid. Higher-end devices often have Android, and Android is great if you know how to use it, but it's got lots of extra features and it's easier to mess stuff up and get into things that they shouldn't. That's why I recommend going for a Linux-based handheld that uses Emulation Station as the front end, because it's the best front end for simplicity. And it even has a kid mode, which I'll show you in a bit. As for actual recommendations, if you want the cheapest of the cheap, then maybe go for the DataFrog SF2000. It's quite limited. It doesn't play everything perfect, and you're not going to get all of the customization steps that I'm going to explain. It is really freaking cheap and easy to use though. My number one choice is the RGB20S. It uses the RK3566 processor, which can run a ton of stuff, and it's one of the cheapest handhelds that uses that processor. And it also comes in a bunch of colors, and it comes with some fun stickers to customize the look of the thing. But if you wanted something bigger, then I think the Powkiddy X55 is a freaking awesome device for the price. It has a big, beautiful screen, it's ergonomic and comfortable, same RK3566 processor, and it feels sort of like a Nintendo Switch, which kids know about and like, so it'll have that going for it. I'll link my reviews of all these in the description below, and I'll link to where you can buy them down there. The next category is dealing with the games list. This is the part that will be the most work, but it's also the most fun. So take your time with this step and do it right. I know it's tempting when you're wanting to give the gift of retro gaming to just be like, here's all the games, all of them. You can play everything now, have fun. But here's the thing. Most retro games kind of suck. I'd say maybe only a quarter of them are even worth playing, and maybe only like 5% are must-play games. And a kid isn't going to have the patience to go through a ton of games, looking for ones that are fun. They're gonna try a few, probably be disappointed and be like, yeah, this thing isn't fun, and that'll be the end of it. So it's up to you to pick the best games for each system. If you're making your own SD card completely fresh with your own games, then you can skip this next part, but I wanted to explain that most of these handhelds come with a games card preloaded with thousands and thousands of games. Here you can see when I load up my RGB20S's SD card, it's full of folders, and each of those folders has lots of games. Look at this Game Boy folder. It has 475 games. That's way too many games. So what we're going to do is create our own subfolder. We'll call it extras, and we're going to put everything in that folder except for the downloaded images and videos. This way, those games will still be on the card. If they want to play them, they can go into the extras folder, but they're not going to show up in the main game list by default. And now we're going to move our hand-picked batch of games back into the main folder. And this is where the fun starts, because you get to choose which games you're going to give this kid. I think the obvious starting place for Game Boy is the first-party Nintendo games. Put on the classics. Mario, Donkey Kong, Tetris, Pokemon, Kirby. Those franchises that the kids of today might actually know about. And of course, think of the kid that you're doing this for. If your kiddo likes hockey, put on a hockey game. Not 12 hockey games, a hockey game. I'm going to suggest that you aim for 10 games per system. I know that sounds like nothing compared to what you can put on a retro handheld, but trust me, 10 games multiplied by like 10 systems, that's like, hang on a second. That's a lot of games, but it's better to give them 100 amazing games than 300 amazing games. It'll be a more focused experience, and that's what the kid needs. Something to get them playing games and having fun without being burdened by hunting for the best games. You can look up a top 10 list for each system if you don't know what the best games are. Oh, and one more thing is we're not going to give them every system. These devices often come with a ton of systems that would be of no interest to a kid, like Commodore 64 or whatever. Kids aren't going to care about that stuff, so stick to the main retro systems. You can delete the ROMs off the card, but I suggest that you just change the folder name. Just put like an underscore in front of the name of the folder so that it won't show up on the emulator. So now that we've chosen our games, we need to get the actual system ready. The first thing that we'll do is choose the theme. If you use an emulation station focused device, it will come with a bunch of themes installed. You can pick whichever appeals to you, but I would highly recommend if you have the RGB20S, then go with the Switch theme. It makes the system look like a Nintendo Switch, so it should feel familiar to any kid that knows what a Switch is, or at least give the kid some schoolyard cred, that they have a pocket-sized Nintendo Switch with 100 games on it. Now we're going to lock it down by enabling Kid Mode. This will completely disable the ability to open up the settings and tweak stuff about the system, so the kid can't mess anything up. We just want them browsing their games and playing their games. So in the main menu, just press Start, go to UI settings, and then you can change the UI mode. You're going to select Kid, and it'll give you a warning, the good old Konami code, how I've missed you. So press yes and then back out to the main menu, and now you will not be able to access any of the menus or emulator settings at all. The only thing that you could do is browse the games and play the games. Perfect for a kid of any age like this. Well, maybe not any age, but you get the idea. But just because we removed the settings from the main interface, that doesn't mean that we disabled the in-game RetroArch settings. So we'll want to do the same thing there. We are going to handpick a new batch of hotkeys that will be easy for the kid to save their game and exit their game, but not easy for them to mess stuff up. So just start a game. I'm going to launch an NES game, and then you can open the RetroArch menu. If you're on the RGB20S, that hotkey is select an X, but it might be different if you're on a different system. You can figure it out. Anyways, in here, we're going to immediately select Close Content. And now we're going to back out to the main menu and go into the settings and then input, and then scroll down to the hotkeys menu. In here, we're going to do a few things. The first is that we're going to set a very obscure key combo to open the RetroArch menu, just so the kid doesn't accidentally find themselves editing RetroArch settings when they shouldn't be. Go to the menu toggle option, and I suggest you go with down plus Y plus L1 plus R1. There's not much of a chance that the kid will accidentally press that. Now you're going to go through and change a few of the hotkeys and remove the ones that we don't want. The way you remove a hotkey is you just press Start while the option is highlighted. So go through the list and set the hotkeys to this setup that I'm showing on the screen. In my opinion, this is the perfect amount of hotkeys for a kid. Just save and load the state, fast forward toggle, which is important for like RPGs, a Pokemon or whatever, change the state slot and exit the game. Super simple, straight to the point, all stuff and no fluff. Once you've done all that, you can back out to the main menu. Go to ArcOS or whatever your main menu is called and go to Configuration File and select Save Current Configuration. This will set the changes that we made as the new global defaults. And now you can exit RetroArch and test it for yourself. Open a game from any system that uses RetroArch and try out your hotkeys. It should have worked, and now your device is basically kid-proof. It'll be hard for a kid to find ways to break stuff like this. Oh, and you'll need to teach the kid the hotkeys, obviously. I highly suggest that you make a cheat sheet, or better yet, use a label maker to put the hotkeys on the back of the device so that they can't forget them. Have I shown you guys my inkless Bluetooth label maker? I love this thing. I use it all the freaking time. I got it from Amazon for like 20 bucks. I'll link to this thing in the description below if you need one. And the final step is arguably the most important step, making it fun. I found that kiddos need a little extra incentive. They tend to view retro games as old and boring until they actually get playing them. So giving them a little extra incentive goes a long way. So here's my story. My young cousin, who was 10 at the time, he was into Super Mario Maker on the Switch. And I said, well, why don't you play Super Mario World then? And I showed him the game on his emulator, and the next time I saw him, I asked if he'd played it, and he was like, oh yeah, I tried it. But he only played it once, like beat a level or two and forgot all about it. So I says to cousin, listen, you'll love the game if you give it a chance. So here's my deal. For every world that you beat, I'll give you $1. So if you beat the game that's like 9 worlds, I'll give you like $10. And after that, my cousin reached out to me every few days to tell me that he beat a new world or two. After about like 2 weeks, he triumphantly told me that he'd beaten the game. I know he used save states, but I don't care because the challenge was just a MacGuffin. It was something to give him a reason to play the game. And in the end, he freaking loved the game. And most importantly, right after this challenge, he wanted another challenge. He was hooked. So that's my proposal. Find some way to create a sort of metagame around the retro gaming device that you're giving them. Here's a few suggestions. Retro Game of the Week Club. So you and the kiddo play the same game for a week, and then you compare who got further, or even just talk about what you liked and what you didn't. Sort of like a retro game book club. Score challenge. Pick a game with points, like an arcade game or Tetris or whatever, and then see how high of a score you could get. Have a contest. Have a tournament. Pick a competitive multiplayer game. I like sports games for this. And then say, next week we're gonna have a showdown, so you have a week to practice and get good. If they can beat you, they win a prize. game ranking challenge, like a tier list. So give them a system like Game Boy and say, you got to play each of these games for at least 10 minutes, and then you'll need to put them in order from your least favorite to your favorite. And then you can compare lists. Or just do the challenge that I did. Pick some milestones throughout the game and offer some reward. It doesn't matter what the reward is, trust me. The fact that there is a reward will be motivation enough. And that's it. That's my foolproof technique for giving a kid a retro emulation device that they'll actually want to use. And the lucky kiddo in your life who gets this thing will probably have an amazing time with it. And there's probably a few other things we could talk about on this topic, but the video is long enough, so I'm just going to end it here. If you have any experience with kids and emulation, I'd love to hear your experiences or your thoughts on my method, or if you have any other suggestions. If you liked this video, then check out my original review of the POW Kitty RGB20S. There's a link on the screen right now and at the top of the description below, and you can go watch it right now because we're done. I'm TechDweeb, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.